Welcome to the Kennedy Report. I'm Kennedy Hall. Andrew Tate is not masculine. Stop listening to him. His message is toxic. It is a disservice to Christians and men, and it is an absolute unmitigated disaster of stereotypes, parodies, machismo, and so forth. We're going to continue in a second here, but please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and let me know what you think in the comments. You can check the links in the description for how to grow in true masculinity. You can buy my book, Terror of Demons, Reclaiming Traditional Catholic Masculinity. You'd think I would know what it was titled, considering I wrote it. In any case, if you don't know who Andrew Tate is, I didn't know who he was till a few weeks ago. He is a former kickboxing champion, very wealthy man, and is part of the sort of manosphere, which is a loose term for sort of this group of men online and growing in real life as well, who have essentially decided to push back against feminism and things like that. There are parts of the manosphere which are totally healthy. I've seen them. They're just sort of Christian men who recognize that they've been lied to about what a man is and so forth, and they're trying to reclaim that, which is great. On the other hand, there is another darker side to it, as there are with all movements. This is not, unique. But you get these things like men going their own way, which has been around for a little while, which is basically men who recognize that, the divorce laws and the way that education takes place with feminism and all these kinds of things is obviously against men. So they sort of overcorrect and sort of write off the female group as a whole, but also embrace a lot of stereotypes. It's like, you say I can't, like it's wrong to be a player. It's wrong to, be into fast cars. Well, I'm going to get super wealthy and have a ton of girlfriends, screw you. Like that's kind of and I'm not going to get married as well. They say things like that because why would I do that when the system's against me if we get divorced? I mean, anyway, Andrew Tate is the worst of the manosphere. And I'm going to prove that to you in a second here. He does say that he's a Christian in some places. I don't care. A lot of people say they're Christians and they're absolute hypocrites and losers. So here is an article from Andrew about Andrew Tate, and it came, and the reason I chose this one is because not that I believe that anyone should be doing apologetics for Andrew Tate, but because this is a conservative leaning publication. They gave a fairer shake to his actual claims, which again, if we're going to talk about somebody, they may as well have a fair shake. So it says Andrew Tate claims big tech banned him after large swaths of people agreed with his masculine values in quotes. And this is why I wanted to talk about this, because he doesn't have masculine values. He has stereotypically machismo values, but he doesn't have masculine values. He has legitimately said things like women are the property of men. That's just not a thing. Even in the most traditional Christian culture you can imagine, there has never been this idea that women are property of men. This is insane. That's pagan and Muslim. You can find that in pagan societies. You can find that in Muslim societies. It's not Christian. There is no such thing in Christian doctrine, even in a very stereotypically old school age, which I don't think there's anything wrong with the old school ages, but in the general sense. But even in the most stereotypical, like, kings sending their daughters to marry the sons of other kings, there's no property aspect. Women are not this is against the gospel. It's impossible for women to be a property of a man. That's insane. And also, his cancellation from big tech has turned him into this martyr. There's this famous podcast, PBD or Patrick Bet David or something. It's good podcast. He has lots of interesting guests on, but he had this Andrew Tate guy on, and it's like 5 million views, and it's a 5-hour podcast. Conservatives and young men who are misguided, and I'm speaking to the young men here too, like young men who are disenfranchised with the feminist culture, which rightfully so. They're looking to men like this as heroes when they're not. He's a scumbag. He made most of his money with basically pornography, with cam girls, who would seduce men and take their money. Okay. He is a terrible human being. I'm not saying that people who have made mistakes and have publicly sinned should never be listened to if they say the right thing. He's not saying the right thing though. If he came out and said, I was a I was a womanizer and whatever, and I've repented from that, and I'm embracing the gospel, and great. I hope he does that. Pray for his soul, of course. This isn't a puritanical rant where because he's done bad things, therefore no one listened to him. No, that's insane. We would have to not listen to St. Paul if that was the case, or St. Augustine or something. But he hasn't done that. He's embracing this idea of being a martyr because he was canceled, and I don't agree with cancellation as a cultural thing. But he's a legitimately awful dude with legitimately awful views. And regardless of the double standard, there is a double standard. Of course, he's sort of right wing in a sense that he rejects the left. Okay, fine. So they canceled him in a double standard sort of way. I get that. There are plenty of left wing wackos who have massive internet followings and they'll never get canceled. Yes, there's a double standard. Nonetheless, though, he doesn't deserve to be a martyr. He's not a martyr for anything. He's just a scumbag who promotes legitimate, these terms sexist and misogyny, they get thrown around without meaning anymore. It's kind of like the word racist. Everyone's a racist, so no one's a racist, but there are legitimate men who have terrible views about women and shouldn't be listened to. And he's one of them. He's a terrible, terrible human being with disgusting views. I can't stress this enough. If you're a young man and listening to this guy, you're going to turn into an evil bastard. Do not listen to this guy. He is not manly. Nothing he says should be, sure, a broken clock is right twice a day. His critiques of feminism and stuff, they're just general critiques. You throw enough spaghetti at a wall and some of it's going to stick. Fine. But there's nothing masculine about him, and there's nothing about him that is virtuous as far as his message about men. And I'm going to, and he's a fraud. He's a master manipulator. I've looked into this guy's biography. He has made his bazillions of dollars by fooling people. He's doing the same thing right now. He's a grifter. He's a grifter par excellence. Okay, so what does his article say? Okay, I should make this bigger as well for you. He says, so this is the article. This is him, like this. I'm sorry. This is a stereotype of masculinity. Okay. Internet personality and former kickboxer Andrew Tate claimed that big tech deplatformed him because he had large swaths of the population agreeing to very traditional masculine values. This is what he told Tucker Carlson. Okay. He said, they banned me simply because I had large swaths of the population agreeing to very traditional masculine values. I have a very traditional masculine life. I have fast cars and a big house and a lot of money and a beautiful girlfriend. And they thought this was very, very threatening. Having a big house and fast cars, there's nothing wrong with that. People like cars, cool, have some cars. It's not a masculine value. If you think that having fast cars and a big house makes you a man, then you're an idiot. You're a complete and utter moron. And I've got a girlfriend. Have you married her, or do you just shack up with her like she's some concubine? Living with a woman before you're married and fornicating is not masculine. It's awful. There is nothing masculine about this. This is a joke. No single young man should be listening to this guy. He's an absolute scum of a human person. This sort of stuff boils my blood. I published this book, Reclaiming Traditional Catholic Masculinity, Terror of Demons. You can buy it, the link's in the description. I recommend you do. This book has the Western civilizations and the church's wisdom on what it means to be a man. Having fast cars is not found anywhere in the Bible. Having a big house is not found anywhere in traditional philosophy about being a man. Having a girlfriend that you shack up with while running a porn operation, I'm sorry, that has nothing to do with being a man. If you listen to Andrew Tate, you're an idiot. Continuing. He says, Tate has been accused of sexism, drawing criticism from the left for his advocacy of traditional gender roles. He has not advocated for traditional gender roles. He's advocated for a stereotype of traditional gender roles. Women being property is not a traditional gender role. If you want to know what a traditional gender role is, read the book of Proverbs. Husband is, and writings of St. Paul and so forth. Yes, husband is the head of the household, but in a position of self-sacrifice. St. Paul says the man is the head of the woman in the way that Christ is the head of the church. What does that mean? That your daily duty as a man is to die to self for your wife and family. Having a chick you shack up with and fornicate like a loser and a bunch of fast cars does not make traditional gender roles. It's not even a church teaching that women have to stay home and never leave the house or work. The ideal woman is in Proverbs 31. Yes, the woman's primary responsibility is the care of the home, but that includes, as Proverbs says, sometimes even buying and acquiring property, handling the family economic affairs in some cases. Nothing about I haven't been this upset in a while on YouTube. This guy is the antithesis of a man. This is the most effeminate type of man. And here's why. This guy is more effeminate than a porn-addicted, Mountain Dew swilling video game addict in his mom's basement. And here's why. Because he's so effeminate that not only is he acting this way, he's pretending that it's virtue. That is the epitome of a weak, sniveling, effeminate man. Do not listen to this guy. He is a complete and utter joke. He is not masculine. He destroys masculinity with his stupid views. Continuing. He says, what happens is, here's him explaining for himself, when I say these things, they ignore 95% of what I say. They ignore me saying that you need to avoid low-quality men. But again, don't listen to him about what constitutes a quality man. He thinks he's a good man, and he's shacking up with concubines, doing a pornography industry to make money while scamming old, lonely men, and out there saying women are property. If he's high-quality man, then God help us. He continues. He said, manhood is very, very difficult. How would he know? How would he know? Really? He knows about manhood? What sort of family is he raising right now? What sort of sacrifices has he made? So he got canceled from social media. It's a grift. He's got billions of views on Rumble or whatever now, and he sells products and merchandise and he has private jets. This is a total joke. Masculinity is waking up at 2 a.m. to help your wife after she's had a C-section because she needs help to change the baby. Masculinity is not jet setting around the world because you say no to certain professional opportunities to be at home. Masculinity is raising your children. Masculinity is getting married, not shacking up with some woman who you're going to drop for some other porn actress. Masculinity is being a Christian, dying to self for the sake of your bride, acting like Christ. Nothing about this man is masculine. If when he says things like, manhood is very, very difficult, maybe he should actually ask real men what it's like to be a real man. He has no idea what he's talking about. Continuing. He said, today's young men feel very disaffected and invisible as they feel unaligned with the agenda's force on them. This is where he's deceiving, because that's true. And he's a predator. Men like this are predators. He's a predator towards women, which is why he uses them to sell pornography. This man is a predator. So he's preying on young men as well. He's putting a message out there that these 17, 18-year-old kids who have been put through the public school system and don't have any purpose, sadly, and I understand why, he's putting out a message that's like a hook. He's trolling them. He's saying, I gotcha. I know what you're going through. Because these young men, even in their 20s and 30s, because men are so childish nowadays, they lack wisdom. So they see this message and this guy ranting about feminism. And they're like, yeah, that's true. This, I got screwed over by this professor, or, my girlfriend with, they have all these stories that match what he's saying. And he says, you're oppressed. He is no different than a feminist. This man is promoting a victim ideology where he's turning men into victims, which is ridiculous. Men are not victims. Okay. And I'm not talking that men have not been oppressed by the culture. They have been, but being a victim is a mentality. If you're going to sit there and complain like a sniveling weasel about how the culture's screwed you over, with all due respect, please sack up and stand up straight and grow a spine, for goodness sake. Anyway, continuing. He says, if you go on an Instagram feed, yeah, where real virtue is found, listen to this guy. He's an Instagram guru. You have extremely beautiful women, but and he doesn't even define what beauty is. But it's plastic silicone surgeries. Is that what he's talking about? But the only men who have followers are men who have massive social status, like him, men with Ferraris and money, or rappers, or people who have YouTube channels. Interesting people. So he thinks that you're an interesting person if you have money or Ferraris or YouTube channels. Wow. He sounds like a real wise, smart human being. He says it's very difficult for you to even get any kind of recognition that you're even alive. This is not true. This is true if you exist in a parallel universe. If you think being recognized for being alive means that you swindle old men out of their money selling pornography with young girls that you basically use as sex slaves, if that's what you mean, then I guess you're right on the money, Andrew Tate. He says, and I was championing to a degree their issues by saying to them, see, this is where he preys on young men. Look, that is unfair, perhaps, but that's not the way the game works. You need to become a man of importance. You need to become a man of influence, or you're going to suffer the pain of being invisible forever. Here's how you do it. See? Sells this false gospel of male victimization in the very effeminate way, or hooks them in, and then sells this devil's gospel of nonsense. Anyway, he says, Tate also claimed that men are so oppressed because they feel invisible. Women's expectations that they are strong and smart and funny and interesting with a nice apartment and a fast car and tall and well-connected are too much for them to bear. If this is the type of woman that you're dealing with, then deal with a different woman. She sounds like an idiot. If the woman that you know, if you're saying that men are oppressed because women they know say they have to be tall and have a nice apartment in order to be visible, then talk to somebody else. This is not reality. This is like people who believe that living on Instagram is the real world. What an absolute joke. Continuing. Men are under immense social pressure and are not helped by social media companies whose mass ban of figure who was championing men's issues. Shame on the National Post for saying he was a champion. Shame on them. Demonstrates a lack of concern for young men, he continued. No. He's a swindler. He's a fraud. He's a loser, and no one should listen to him. He says, they want to get rid of me and try and replace me with something they see as far more malleable, trying to create people who are malleable and easier to program and easier to control. He's a sophist. He's saying these sort of half-truths. Anyway, that's it. Okay, so don't listen to Andrew Tate. Don't listen to any moron who says you should listen to Andrew Tate. In fact, anyone who promotes Andrew Tate should feel ashamed of themselves. I'm not saying reporting on it's fine, but promoting. He is not masculine. He is not promoting masculinity. If you want to know true masculinity, you find it in this book, in the church's wisdom, the wisdom of Western civilization. Real men self-sacrifice. They don't say they're a man because they have fast cars and a big house and a concubine and a bunch of prostitutes that they sell porn from. That's not what real men do. That's what predators do. That's what sexual predators do. This guy is nothing more than a predatorial objectifier of women and men. He's preying on young men who are disaffected, and he's using their legitimate pain and suffering, which is caused by a culture that has a lack of virtue and Christianity, and he's using that as a way to sell his devil's gospel of misogyny. And he should be ashamed of himself. Pray for his soul, because if he does not repent, he will burn in hell for all eternity. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel. This